Welcome to the FTN Show.
Hey everybody, welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy, your host for the Bella Lost Souls podcast. I'm joined out by Adam Camilleri.
Hello everybody, wishing everybody a very Merry Christmas. Hope everybody is safe and sound and happy and righteously plump.
Yeah, man, same here. Happy holidays to everybody. It's just you and I tonight. We're actually recording on an off night. I know we say that, but it's juggling schedules of whatever, but it's the last show of the year.
Last show of the decade, I think you pointed out before.
Crack-a-boom.
Yeah, that's crazy to think. We're about to be into the 2020s.
Yeah, I do want flapper dresses to come back. Look, I'm not even kidding. If we can get some, what is it, the dress looking like, in our fedoras and,
yeah, dude,
trench coats.
What an age of fashion. Like, you look back at some years, no one's going to look back at the 90s and be like, man, we were well dressed then.
We did it.
Nobody.
The pinnacle. Yeah.
The same as the 80s. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, same here. Well, okay, so on this show, I wanted to do like a retrospective of the figures, the best top 10 figures released over the last 10 years.
I think it's a great idea.
It turns out there's no list of those anywhere that I could find.
I guess it's up to us then, man.
I think it is. Oh, but there's no list of like the release timeline.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's no list of when things actually came out.
Yes.
Well, I think I'm good for like the last 5 years. I think I get that pretty accurate, but prior to that, yeah, I wouldn't know.
See, I was thinking, like I don't know when the actual Baneblade, the plastic Baneblade kit was released. It could have been 15 years ago.
Yeah, you're very right. It could have been, and it could have been. Well, it definitely wasn't recently, but
no, I mean it's greater than 5, probably greater than 8.
Definitely greater than 5. I think I've got a White Dwarf with the first, I think, full Apocalypse rule set in it, and it's got a Baneblade. I actually don't know if that's the Forge World one or the GW one.
Well, the original resin one. That was, I remember, well, Armorcast actually put out some, ancient times. I remember being at a party and someone telling me that there were 40K Titans that you could purchase.
Man, you must have gone to some pumping parties, man. That just sounds like a riotous good time.
Let's pretend we're not in similar company here for just a minute. Suspend disbelief that we're not all just giant geeks talking about stuff, but we are. I really thought that they were making it up because there was no internet back. You couldn't go and go to the Armorcast website and see the Warhound Titan or the Phantom Titan or whatever.
Well, yeah, that's actually really true. I remember when I first started, there wasn't yet Forge World, but I hadn't heard of Armorcast yet, so I'm not quite sure if I'm caught in the middle there somewhere. Yeah, when Forge World first launched, I remember that was a big occasion. Like, people were just losing their minds that some of these models they were bringing out were even possible. Like the first generation Warhound, first generation Reaver Titans were just like, I don't know if it was a Reaver Titan. There's some other big model. Everyone's maybe it was one of the
predecessor. They were the original. They made the original Falcon Grav tank, the Tempest tank, the LR, the Reaver, not Reaver. Now maybe there was a Reaver Titan, but there was definitely a Warhound and a Reaver and a Phantom Titan, an Orc Gargant.
Yeah, the first generation Stomper.
Some of them looked like basically like whittled bars of soap. So some of them were a lot better than others, but I'm not harshing it. Like it was amazing at the time.
It's got these nerds going out with a small Stanley knife to cut down a redwood to carve into a single piece Stomper.
That's exactly how the Falcon Grav tank looked. It looked like the soap in your guest room, guest bathroom, or whatever. It's like it's been there and it's starting to lose its shape, but you can still kind of tell what it was originally. It used to be a beautiful rose or a tulip or something, but now it's. But the Tempest looked awesome, and a lot of the other stuff looked awesome. I know we're off topic. That was definitely not within this decade.
Was that surely was that even in the 2000s?
No,
or was
that was early 90s.
In the end of the 90s?
No, that was early 90s. That was like no more than mid 90s, and then Forge World picks up, and that's where we get some of the other stuff, and but it leads. I know I'm sorry, I'm trailing off like an old man.
That's fantastic. I actually really like this stuff, though.
But getting us to the last 10 years, that's where it starts to, we pick up a pretty much an accelerated pace, especially the last 5 years or so.
Well, the production line of new models coming out of GW has just literally exploded. So towards the end of 7th, and then from the end of probably the last 2.5 to almost 3 years, the amount of models and new sculpts that G-Dub has been literally hurling at us has been phenomenal, and the quality and the design, the aesthetics, beyond anything anybody else has ever produced in miniatures. So I really think I actually think we'll struggle to find a super standout model aesthetically.
I don't know, man. I got a couple of picks.
Yeah, I was about to say it's going to be interesting if we can find one that's from before this like mad 3D. Sorry, what is it? It's 3D engineered and rendered like computer designed rather than the old school sculpting and press molding and all that stuff.
You ready for me to blow your mind?
Blow my mind, man.
Mandrakes.
Yeah, all right. Cool, we're off to a good start. I'm not even going to question that. They're fantastic.
No, but you are right, though. I think the way design happens now and what they're able to sculpt. And so we should probably even couch it. Like, I believe that the new Citrus Battle Exorcist is a gorgeous model. I love the details of the organ and the organ player. Like, that's high up there, but I don't even know. You're right. To your point, I'm not even sure if we should count that.
Well, I haven't seen one in the flesh yet, but it is, I can't disagree. I haven't actually seen a bad model come out of G-Dub in about a year. So the worst models they've brought out in the last kind of 3 or 4 years was that Eldar tree terrain. That stuff hurt my brain. Just looking at it was like, I don't know what this is. I have no cares for it.
I think that was what you call clearing a backlog.
Probably. They're like, someone wrote a design and did the CADs for it like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and it's like, just shove it anywhere, push it through, get it done. I've never seen that stuff on a table either. I don't know anybody who purchased it.
For what it was for the price, I think it was a difficult pill to swallow, but I think that there is some merit in it if you include it in some other stuff. But like, it's hard to want to purchase stuff that you can't make pew pew noises with.
That's true. But my thinking is they brought out the Sector Mechanicus stuff within about a year. The new Sector Mechanicus stuff would have maybe 18 months of that. And just the difference in quality and design and usability of that stuff compared to the modular, incredible walkways and silos and all the crazy awesome furnaces and stuff we have now. They're apples and oranges.
I agree.
So you know what they are? They're Chihuahuas and Great Danes. They know they're both scenery, but they could easily be different species.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Okay, so let's say Mandrakes and the 3 Primarchs.
Yeah, I was going to say the Primarchs automatically go in, don't they?
And we've got.
And are we including the G-Dub? Or are we going Forge World as well?
Well, we can include Forge World. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking just GW Prime, but I mean Forge World.
If we include Forge World, we have to say that the Primarchs are out of contention, because then the top 10 would literally just be the 10 best Primarchs.
Yeah, I almost feel like we should build an exclusion list. We have to couch the list, the non-Primarch, Forge World. Yeah, I guess you can include Forge outside of the Primarchs and the character series, because they are. I mean, even Karn. The 30K version of Karn.
Yeah.
Immaculate. Tibio. What's his name? Rubio. Amazing. Like this, Tyler Rubio.
Tyler Rubio.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that model. He just kind of beef with his sword.
Well, I'm thinking that the character series and the Primarchs are the only stuff that Forge World's bringing out right now that are better than the current plastics by G-Dub. Like they're actually like another level above the current plastics. Like like we pointed out, Eldrad. Like Eldrad is on par with these guys, but he's not better than. But some of these guys are better than Eldrad, the character series and the Primarchs and stuff. But so yeah, I think we take out the character series. I think we take out the Primarchs and we just go ham.
Yvraine, I'm a big fan of Yvraine.
And the Yinkan as well. Yeah. Not a fan?
Okay, I'm a fan of everything, but the face on that model, I'm not a huge fan of.
Let me have a quick look. Yinkan. Why am I spelling this right? But so. Fair enough. If there is like one bit that's going to knock them off, I don't think either of those would make the top 10. I think they're very good though.
You don't think Yvraine's in the top 10? I mean, this is completely subjective. So I mean, but yes, you're right.
To my mind, I actually prefer the Yinkan to her. Actually, yeah, I'm looking at their face right now. That is a bit derpy. What What even is coming? What's coming out of there? Yeah, okay, never mind.
When I have not built mine yet, but it's actually the character is getting a lot of play now in List, and I think there's a place for it. It could just be out of nowhere, like gotcha, you know.
Yeah, it is the king of jank. You don't know what it's going to do next, and it's very dynamic. It's very killy, and it's in the right hands. It can do so much work.
You can abuse the heroic intervention rule with it. You know, you could be everywhere. You could literally jump, 92 inches, 100 inches across the table.
Yeah. Yep. So, all right. So Yvrane's in the top 10. Where is she 10th? Is she 9th? What are we talking?
Oh, I don't know. I don't want to be so.
We're not ranking them.
Yeah, I don't want to rank them yet. Maybe I'll rank them after the show after we've figured out what the pool of the models are.
That's fair. I have to say the Telemon Custodes Dreadnought.
Yeah. Okay.
That thing just like Hulk smash, the Hulk Buster from Iron Man. Is it Avengers 2 or Avengers 3? They're the Hulk Buster. It just brings back, it's so tough. It's so good looking. Like, it looks like the epitome of what a dreadnought can be, and it is in the game as well. So I think that's one of mine. That's
a good call. I like all those Custodes dreadnoughts that they brought out. The ones, like with the spear and the sword and shield and that kind of stuff. Mm. Those are all beefcake, but yeah, Telemon.
Telemon is just a little bit above the rest.
Yep.
So it's just so tough looking. So tough.
Yeah, so we're looking. So I guess this is harder. This is harder than it sounds because there's so many good models. I mean, you start thinking about I've got some favorites. Fire Raptor. I love the Fire Raptor.
Yeah, Fire Raptor is incredible.
It takes a little bit to put together. It's one of those models that if you're not a skilled modeler, when you get it in your hands, you may really you will struggle to get it together.
That's fair. Are we doing
together? It looks amazing.
Are we doing characters at all?
Yeah. Well, Yvraine and those guys are characters.
Of course, yeah. Because I want to say Belisarius Call.
Oh yeah, that's good.
He's just everything. So you read like the Horus Heresy Mechanicus book, it's Mechanicum, and what's the battle in the Webway? Is it Master of Mankind? Yeah, and you've got so many awesome descriptions of what these Dominuses, these tech priests of Mars have like turned themselves into, and then you see Call, and you're like, that's exactly what they described. Tendrils and legs. It's gone, but it's like you can see like the barest resemblance of of the human they started as, and then just all this janky, amazing stuff they're stuck in, like change themselves into. I think he's perfect. Yeah,
a lot of different textures on that model. So it's kind of a painter's paradise.
Exactly. You got skin, you got robes, you got so many options for metallics. I think, brilliant book. So brilliant model. Those books are good as well.
Yeah. It's actually got me wanting to play Mechanicus after the first Mechanicum novel by Graham McNeil.
It was really good.
Oh man, this is a very difficult list to pick from.
It's getting rough. I feel like I need to find a Gene Stealer cult model because there's so many good ones.
Well, the Jackal. What's the HQ with on the bike?
The Jackal Alphas. Yep, done. Yep.
I like that Perfect. Model a lot. I think that's one of the ones that let me tell you why I suggested it for the list, is that you can look at it and there's a lot about 40K right in there. It's got the subtle link to the Gene Stealer, which we know links to the Tyranids, and then we've got a lot of the gritty nature of what you must imagine life to be like on some of these planets, and it's got a gun. So
the stance is good. Everything's there. The aesthetic's perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, man, I'm just looking at it now. That is such a well done, well produced model. Very, very nice. Yeah. If only I could put a guard company commander on that bike. That would be the best. Give me back Rough Riders, J-Dub. Give me them back. I want them.
I guess we've subconsciously limited this to 40K also.
Did you want to make it Age of Sigmar? Because we could.
No, we'd be here all day. We're top
exactly right.
models in the.
Yeah.
Because pretty much every Warcry model class, would make an honorable mention on this list.
Have they since Age of Sigmar started? Have they brought out a bad model for it? Probably not.
Oh, no. Well, Sigmar is, nothing new stuff. Like, after they've relaunched to Sigmar, I think it's pretty much been firing on all cylinders. But the Warcry stuff is, in my opinion, a step above. It's like they've gone kind of even further away from that archetypical fantasy mold, and are truly making some even more unique property stuff.
Fantastic. Well, for everything I've seen of them is amazing. What are the bird guys?
Bird Dudes.
Bird Dudes. The main Bird Dude was one of the first models I saw for the Warcry. And I'm like, well, this is just going to be a good game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if it's got good models, it's probably going to be a good game.
All the stuff they put out for Warcry has got that kind of darker feel to it, because I think, they started with just the Chaos where like everyone's trying to appease Archon or Archaon to originally eventually become like a cultist or whatever. A marauder. I don't know what marauders are nowadays, but they're trying to elevate up to that Chaos Warband status.
It's the Corvus Cabal, the main guy in the Corvus Cabal. He's just fantastic.
Yes,
they're actually, but you're right, man. They're all good. They're all good.
Lord of Skulls. I feel like that has to have been released within the last 10 years.
Yeah, I could get with that. He's a big beefy boy, and he's actually getting a bit of play now, which is. I'm very happy to see. And they're actually sold out. They're sold out on GW site. They've got email me.
Yeah?
This is probably the first time a Lord of Skulls has actually been legitimately viable. Maybe they were upon release in 7th edition. In fact, they were. I remember people using the Grimoire of True Names on them to give them like it was a 3+ invuln or something crazy. There was some stuff you could do to make them super powerful. But yeah, it's a really cool model. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I love those big tanks on the back.
Yeah, I think they are super, super cool.
They're all
full of blood and...
Yeah, the only thing that's questionable about the model is that there's like blood crusher heads that are just kind of like poking out in random places.
I wish they had a generic head for it. Like they had the corn head and then they had a secondary generic head. So you could play it, you could put it into your Death Guard army and say, it's a corn Lord of Skulls, but here's my Nurgle Lord of Skulls.
Well, you needed some green stuff and a little time.
Yeah, that's right. You just need a bit of talent. Bit of time to put into it.
Or, whatever. Making a little green stuff tubes and things like that it's not that difficult.
It's actually not too bad. Yeah. One of my mates came over yesterday and he was showing me some Tartarus Terminators he's converting with Scarab Occult Terminators to make some 30k 1,000 Suns Tartarus Terminators. And he's sculpted trim onto one of the knee pads. And I was just sitting there for about 20 minutes just absorbing how he did that. And I was like, wow, that's... Yeah, the sharing of hobby knowledge in the community is fantastic.
Do we put the Imperial Knights on this list?
We probably have to, but I think we should do a Forge World one for them because I think the Forge World ones are significantly more interesting.
Like the Cerastus pattern Knights?
The Cerastus ones, or the Atropos. The Atropos or the Lancer are probably my two favorite.
I think
the Lancer. Okay,
good.
Yeah.
All right, I was kind of hoping we were going to beef about it, but that's a good one.
So there's only one that aesthetically I think is in contention against it, and that's probably the Castigator, just because the gun, like the gun with the belt, the super huge belt feed into the back of the model, just looks, I think, fantastically cool. But I do think the Lancer wins it.
Fair enough. The Calexis Assassin, I think, is a great model.
Yeah, well, we could say all the assassins. I have a little bit of issues with the Calidus, and not with the actual model. The model is fantastic, but I just find it's like a model you shouldn't play with. You should paint it and put it on your mantelpiece because every part of that will break at some point. Mm-hmm. It'll break at the ankle. It'll break at where it joins at the base. The hair will break off. The arms will break off. That's been my experience with that model.
Yeah,
I borrowed it
especially
once.
as us, so we travel. I told we talked about I don't put the angel wings on my sanguinary guard. Not because I don't necessarily like the way that they look. It's because that they always snap off when I'm transporting them.
Yeah. Well, I borrowed the Calidus for an event shortly after it first came out, and I had to apologize so many times because I am quite clumsy and I broke the absolute crap out of that model. And I still feel bad about it. I repaired it before I gave it back, but naturally, every time you repair a model, you're losing something. You're losing a bit of stance. You're losing a bit of everything.
Yeah. The reason I picked the Calexis is because I think that if we are nitpicking, and we're trying to calculate the actual best. Also keep in mind, completely subjective. There's nothing objective about this, what we're talking about here is what the best is the best, is that I think the Calexis absolutely is perfect because its pose, its menacing stance, and it has none of those things that you just mentioned.
It has an amazing simplicity to it. Especially in the stance. Like, it's very simple. The Ebersaur is jumping off a wall, the Calidus is like doing some kind of Matrix fly kick thing, and the Calexis is just standing there. He's just standing there. Doesn't matter. He's like, yep, here I am. I like it. I think it's a good pick.
Another kind of questionable one is Kodiaz. I feel like Kodiaz is probably older than 10 years.
Wow, he actually might be.
I feel like it's a 15-year-old model.
Someone chuck in the chat, chuck in the comments on YouTube. How old is Cody as?
But no,
let us know.
But that model stands up. That's another one of those that's just got everything going on with 40K. You got a Thunderhammer, you got a robotic eagle, dude's got a fur cape on.
And he's
power.
Brilliant. He's brilliant. He's fantastic. One that I would like to. So this is the first unit I think we've done.
Mandrakes.
The rubric. You picked Mandrakes. You're absolutely right. But the new rubric Marines.
Oh yeah.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, it's a shame those don't get more play. Like, same with the Death Guard Marines too. Is that they're so flavorful.
The reason I picked the rubric Marines is, do you look at the OG ones, the original rubric Marines, and you look at these ones, and you're like, literally the same aesthetic, the stances, all the iconography, everything is just transferred from one to another, and I think the best two, like, if you put those two models next to each other, you will see the progress of the game in a snapshot.
That's an excellent point, because there's no detail lost from when it was metal going to plastic. If anything, you've got more.
I think that's the best example of seeing how far the game has come, how far Games Workshop has come. You couldn't get a better comparison in my mind.
Fair enough. I know you mentioned Call, but if we're talking about units now, the stuff from the not the Rust Stalkers. What's the other variant with like the dome?
Infiltrators.
The Infiltrators.
Yeah, Infiltrators. Yeah. Wow. You're right. They're fantastic. They're gorgeous.
Yeah. And above, like, I think you could arguably mention Electro Priest as are really great models, but I think that there's another thing. Like, if we're just like, being subjective here, I think that the Infiltrators got a lot of what 40K is, and that was one of those unique factions that they brought out that just nailed it. It just looked exactly like you thought it should look on the first go.
I've got one for Tyranids. This is my favorite Tyranid model, probably many Tyranid players' favorite model, the Dimachairon, or as I call him, the Big Dim Sim.
The Big Dim Sim.
That is like an alien queen on roids.
That's the Forge World one?
It's the Forge World one.
And that's the big, like, aggressive, like, pointy looking one?
Yeah. It's going to eat your face, then it's going to eat your family's faces, and it's going to kick your dog. It's so good. I love that model so much. I wish it saw some play. It saw play in some, like, random tournaments in 7th edition, but I don't think it's seen any play.
Yeah, I remember being good for like 2 months.
Yeah, 2 months. But that model is superb.
Nice. All right, I think we've got a big enough pool here to at least get people's thinking about stuff. Let's hear your suggestions, though. Let us know if we properly peg Cody as Age's model, but also what your favorite. You don't have to list 10. Let's just want to. But what's your favorite model of the last decade?
Yeah, sick. I'm actually really keen to see what people think.
Yeah, cool to hear that, because I know there's some we've missed, because again, we are just, it's almost we had to restrict ourselves to a list, and then there's almost like too many to choose from.
There absolutely is too many to choose from. We could do the whole hour and a half episode just picking these out of thin air and just rolling with why we think they're cool, because there are so many to choose from. I think we're a bit spoilt sometimes. As players, we can get a bit spoilt. And I was talking before, so I think this might be a good segue. The Ritual of the Damned Psychic Awakening book has been previewed slightly on the Games Workshop website, and they've told us how Dark Angels are getting an update, Green Knight's getting an update, Thousand Suns are getting an update. And as Dark Angels player, and so I'm super keen for Dark Angels. I looked at the new model that they brought out, which is Master Lazarius. He's sick in the fluff. He's cool. I look at that model and I'm like, but that's because I'm spoiled. It's legitimately because I'm spoiled.
See, I'm looking at, let me come at this from a Blood Angel perspective.
Hit me.
I'm looking at this model, and our Primaris Lieutenant looks pretty much like every other Primaris Lieutenant that it came out last year or 2 years ago.
Yep.
This Primaris, I know he's a captain or whatever, but he could easily be a Primaris Lieutenant, in my opinion, looks pretty baller. I know he's got here's what I know. I've already seen people talking about, like, I don't like the helmet off. I do. I don't mind, but a lot of people don't.
See, I'm one of those people. I'm of the opinion, and it might be controversial, might not. From a modeling point of view, model however the hell you want. But I always like to model things as if they were in battle and they're not stupid. And I'm of the opinion that these guys are smart enough to never not wear their helmets in battle. Therefore,
I know you're not
everyone
alone.
should have their helmet on.
Yeah, I know you're not alone there. And as I got a couple of friends that just won't play miniatures that don't wear their helmets, but probably for the exact same reason. It's like, because they're in battle. Like, come on. Like,
well, so you think about like custodes. Yeah, there are so many custodes models that don't have their helmets on. Now they're the peak. They're the peak of humanity. Apart from Primarchs, they're the next rung down from peak humanity, and they're trained and they're all scholars and they're intelligent and all that stuff. And you're telling me that they're not smart enough to wear their helmets in battle? You know, one guy turns to the other guy. Oh, how did such and such die? Someone threw a rock at him. That's a hilarious way for a custode to die. And legitimately, that would happen if they didn't wear their helmet. Like, some orc would just be like, I'm going to peg a rock at this dude on his custode's bike who's been alive for 1,000 years. Bang, killed him. Wow, okay. Rolled a 6 to wound. He rolled a 1 on his save. Bang.
Yeah, enough engagements, and the odds of you wear. I'm with you. And the guy's modeled here that he's holding the helmet, which makes you believe that it's probably going to be impossible.
Yes.
To easily put that helmet on his head.
So unless you can change that arm, if that arm can be taken off, you can put just another arm on. Then you just put a different head on, put a completely different arm on. Maybe have an arm holding a storm shield, and you can make him look like a Primaris version of the Forge World Praetor that came out, 30k Dark Angels Praetor. That could be really cool. No. You make them kind of tie in with each other, like he's a next generation of that dude. I look at the other kind of Primaris characters that are coming out, like Kasara Khan. He is so aesthetically perfect with how he's represented in the fluff, on foot at least. I just feel like they could have done more with his stance, more with he's just a Primaris dude with a sword. He's like, nothing seems to be very special about him. Nothing's jumping out. But that legitimately is. It's legit. It's because I'm spoiled, mate. It's because I'm spoiled. That's it. That's all it is. It's because I want the best all the time. I want a model that looks better than Kasara Khan and Shrike, even though he's not a chapter master.
I'm not in any way comparing this guy to Mephiston. Mephiston should also be in our top 10 models over the last 10 years.
Well, if it's your list, then hilariously, why wouldn't you put him in?
Well, he's at the top, right? But he did come with that different pose. Like, you could have put the plasma pistol facing out. So maybe this guy has an option of.
Well, I think they did do a little bit of a preview somewhere that I saw that showed that he has a couple of different options. But let me just have a quick look, because I can probably find that. So he has a different head option, and it looks like you can give him a bolter. Yep, you can change his helmet arm for a bolter. That probably means there's a different head. Maybe there's a helmeted head. But we know there's at least one different head option.
Heck yeah. So we're going to get Dark Angels, Grey Knights, and Thousand Suns coming out of this book.
Yeah. Sorry, I just need to point out something. So on the Warhammer post, the first comment says, whoop whoop, first Primaris Chaos released.
Look, that joke never gets old unless you're a Dark Angels
it's never
player.
going to get old.
Yeah.
I'm as a Dark Angels enthusiast, I think they're on nobody's side. They're on their own side. They don't care for chaos. They don't care for loyalists. They're just going to do whatever the crap suits them best.
I don't think so. I think that the Dark Angels are loyal. Don't tell anybody ever said that.
Yeah, it's a secret. We'll keep it secret, keep it safe. As for that, the Forge World previewed some the first clear plastics models I think they've ever done.
Oh, I know, because there's been an Invisible Bilbo before.
Really?
Yeah, or maybe it was Frodo, but yeah.
Yeah, so they've done a couple of ring bearer models in clear resin. And I think there is Isildur, Gollum, Bilbo Baggins, and Frodo Baggins. Bilbo Master Burglar. Oh, so that's the Hobbit. So there's the Hobbit Bilbo, then there's Lord of the Rings Bilbo, or other Hobbit Bilbo, I don't know. And then there's Frodo. It always confuses me when.
You're doing great.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much. This is why you bring me on, But it always confuses me because all the Lord of the Rings models have like 5 or 6 different variants. Like you've got Theoden, you got Theoden on foot, you got Theoden dying, you got Boromir dying, Boromir on foot. Yeah.
This is one of those things. Well, let's talk about Lord of the Rings in just one second. I know it's like we're hitting all these highlights, and some people that are normally on the show are going to hate me. They're going to call me tomorrow. You promised us a Lord of the Rings show. But before we get off of Grey Knights and Thousand Suns, coming in this Psychic Awakening book, do you have any thoughts or predictions that you want to share? Having
reading over it and just, I don't know, reading, not so much reading between the lines, just with what they've said. So they've said they're going to bring Dark Angels up to somewhere close to to parity with current Space Marines. So that means they're probably getting doctrines. Most likely, they're almost certainly getting doctrines, seeing as we know that Blood Angels did. So you're safe to assume that both Space Wolves and probably Dark Angels will. But what I was really interested to see was what they do with Grey Knights. Because Grey Knights getting doctrines could actually be quite potent. When you think about the Alpha Strike potential in Tactical Doctrine of just Strike Marines, like each 5-man Strike Marine comes down with 20 strength 4 -1 shots on top of their combat ability, on top of their psychic. But the reading between the lines, I don't think they're going to. So for the Dark Angels, this book brings the chapter into line with recent Space Marine updates. Ergo, I assume that's going to mean they're going to get litanies for their chaplains, and they're going to get doctrines. And also it says it's got some
also the Vanguard units and that kind of stuff. So there is that. So there's all the Phobos stuff that we can assume Grey Knights probably won't get.
Well, yeah, they've already said we're not getting primaries of Grey Knights in the short term. So I think that was about a year ago they said that. So things change. And then they said the Grey Knights get plenty of new tricks too, including a particularly powerful new ability called Masters of the Warp, which rewards you for taking a dedicated army of Grey Knights. Now, where I see the distinction there is that they've called that something else. So Angels of Death is what you get for taking mono Space Marines or mono Dark Angels. They've made a distinction there that there's something different here. So if Grey Knights don't get Angels of Death, that means they probably won't get Doctrines. If they don't get Doctrines, they're probably going to get something else. Masters of the Warp, straight away, makes me think if you take an army of pure Grey Knights, maybe you get full strength smites. Maybe that's what that is. But what I'm thinking is, my prediction is I don't think they're going to get doctrines. Now, where this gets a bit more fuzzy is because if they don't get Angels of Death, that means you can't take them with other Space Marines and keep your doctrines. Because right now, you can take Space Marines and you can take Blood Angels in an army, and because they both have Angels of Death, you still get your doctrines. You don't get your specific doctrines bonus. Like you wouldn't get your +1 attack on the charge in Assault Doctrine.
Yeah, your secondary bonus and stuff like that.
Yeah, but you would still get Doctrines, which are hugely potent. We know they're phenomenally powerful. But if Grey Knights don't get Angels of Death, all of a sudden they are almost locked into being mono Grey Knights. And I think that's a fantastic thing for dedicated Grey Knights players, and all the power to you. But at the upper competitive play, you still probably won't see them on tournament tables. But that's my fear, at least.
Well, it goes a little bit further. It says that which rewards you for taking a dedicated army of Grey Knights, channeling a specific aspect of the warp to provide an army-wide bonus. So I think that there will be multiple bonuses, and there may be one hidden in there. Like you might be able to pick, I don't want to make a name up or whatever, but the Shattered Star, what aspect of the warp. And that might be something that makes it competitive. I mean, if there's enough of them, they may kind of luck into one that's really good.
So the issue I have with Grey Knights, and it's no secret, their book isn't very deep. The things that they have, and they're quite good. Like, Grandmaster Dread Knights are quite strong. They're not competitive, but they're strong. They're solid. And the fact that you can take two of them and give them both 3+ intervals through Heated Prognosticators and Sanctuary is very good. Astral Aim is a psychic power that I think is actually only getting stronger. And that's because everyone's taking all these successor chapters with Stealthy, or they're taking Eldar, and one of their Specialist Craft World bits is a stealthy bonus. So having ignores cover and ignores line of sight on demand from Astral Aim on, I think it's a 5 to cast, so it's a 4 for Grey Knights. That is really strong. But the problem is, if you are hamstrung into only to Grey Knights getting all these bonuses, but having them all have caveats of being mono Grey Knights, I think that's going to hamstring them a little bit. And the issue is you could theoretically bring Grey Knights damage output up to exactly the same parity as Space Marines, which we know is one of the best damage output armies we've ever seen in the history of the game. No, I don't think anything's done quite as much damage as Grey Knights are doing at the moment. Maybe the Riptide Wing double shooting in 7th edition was around the same damage output.
Space Marines are
yeah. Oh, sorry, what did I say?
You said Grey Knights. I was going to say they're not doing that.
If they brought their damage output up to the same as Space Marines, unfortunately they still probably wouldn't be as good as Space Marines, because the resilience that Space Marines have on top of that damage output is where the secret craziness is. Because you can technically make an army of 9 broadsides, shoots just as potently as a Space Marine army, but they will get worn down against Space Marines over time, or they'll get tapped and wrapped by things that ignore Overwatch or deny fallbacks, and all these things. They'll start to fall apart.
Yeah, it's fair enough. But I think in Chapter Approved we saw some pretty aggressive point changes for the Grey Knights, and that put them into, it wasn't embarrassing to field them, if you included them as part of something else. Now, I mean, like for instance, like Grey Knights and Guard I think you can make a case for. But
absolutely right.
Maybe with enough little bit of layering the rules up, that's the nudge that they need.
I truly hope they do. I think there is enough meat on the bone there that they can, and the skeleton of something really potent that they can make a fantastic faction. My only worry is that if all those things are caveated by being mono, you might not see them, and I really want to see them. Same as Harlequins, yeah. When we talked about Harlequins, we could have the same chat about Grey Knights because their buy-in for battalions, the same as Harlequins, has gone down significantly. So you could realistically take an army of 2 battalions for Grey Knights, whereas taking that before would have been just taking the 2 HQs and the 3 troops. That's like 2/3 of your army already gone, especially if they were Nemesis Dread Knights. But now that buy-in is a lot lower. You can still take your big Bricker Pallies or a couple of units of Terminators for troops. There's a lot more variance. The difference is between them and the Harlequins, their stratagems are nowhere near as good. The Harlequin stratagems are a phenomenal toolbox, whereas you have like, I guess, 2 or 3 strats in Grey Knights that actually
you just want to use over and over again. Although, if you could enact what's the one that makes the Gatling silencers or whatever better and stuff? Like if you could do that all the time, that might be, again, if you just get access to more command points. But what we have seen is that they're willing to push armies in this Psychic Awakening. So I don't think it's going to be a nothing update. I think it's going to be a meaningful something to the faction.
I guarantee it's going to be meaningful. I guarantee it's going to be quite significant. I just don't think it's going to be enough considering so the buffs are going to be great. But the problem is that the actual book that the buffs are getting laid onto is still weak, and I don't think that's not really disputed.
Like the Dark Angels, but the Blood Angels arguably also a weak book, and now I'm taking them to major tournaments. So there's
Blood
hope.
Angels, yeah, exactly right. Well, see, Blood Angels have this amazing core of aggression that just needs good delivery methods, and it'll just do what it does. Like, but the problem was that you needed a reasonable amount of. They're one of the most thirsty CP armies there are in the game. You will bottom out if you have CP starting turn 3, why?
That's it. Burn them early and often.
Burn them, smash them.
But that leads us to the Thousand Suns. So Thousand Suns, you're just talking about how awesome the models are, and I was quick to point in, but they don't get on the table. What would get them on the table for you?
Well, yeah, what would get them past just being Ahriman and Demon Printers and maybe Zangors? And maybe not Zangors now because they've gone up by a point. I really, really, really like Scarab Occult, and I really, really, really like Rubric Marines. I love Rubric Marines. A brick of 20 Rubric Marines, I want that to be very good. I really want that to be scary.
What's taken about now? Is it the range, the points that you have?
So it's the range, it's the points, and it's fearless. It's not having fearless. Yeah. So they actually have, I think they're leadership 8, and without then they should know no fear. So having 20 guys, you lose half of them. You're losing 2 plus.
And being single wound models, right?
Single wound. Yeah. That all is dust, special rule, whatever it's called, where you ignore rend -1, or you get so the damage when you don't have 2, you only have 1 damage, they get +1 save. That's really, really potent. The problem is though, there's a lot of things out there right now that are stacking damage too, like Stalker Bolt rifles, like Whirlwinds, all the Contemptors and all those crazy things out there. But you think of things like Repulsor Executioners, all this strength 5 -1 or -2 damage coming out of them. It's a bucket of shots. They're literally just getting a bucket and they're just throwing it at you, and you're like, oh yeah, well they're all dead. But they're technically -1, even if they're -2, because you get the +1 because they're damage 1. That is very good, especially if you're sitting in cover. You still get a 3+ save. That's great. You can make them -1 to hit. You can give them a 4+ invuln on top of that. Problem is though, they're very bad in combat. You're investing enough points in them that they should be viable in combat. I mean, Hateful Assault did give them threw them a bone in getting them to 2 attacks on the charge. But when you can just charge a unit of intercessors into a unit of 20 of them, and you'll just stay there all game. They won't kill you. You won't kill them.
I forgot about the Hateful Assault rule that also applies to just 9. Chaos, Codex Chaos Space Marines.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact Codex Chaos Space Marine guys have gone down in points again, you'd probably be hard pressed to justify the rubrics, even though the rubrics come with. They actually have a lot of buffs on top of regular Space Marine. They got the 5+ invuln. They have the AP -2 bolter.
That's actually pretty impressive because there's a lot of things out there that you're fighting to get. How do you get past the 3+ armor save and I mean, better AP, of course, is one way of doing it.
Yeah. Well, so what are some things that they could give them? Did they actually allude us to anything in the article? So Thousand Sons can now dedicate their sorcerers to one of the 9 cults of the Legion, a callback to the arcane roots of Unfallen Prospero, provided them with a plethora. Jeez, that sucked. Of new tactical options. Can you just edit that? Yeah. But yeah, that means they're probably going to get like. So they get 9 different dedications. Maybe that means they cast certain powers
from
better.
From the books, there's all these different disciplines that they could pick up. We had I'm please forgive me, I don't have the names pulled up, but there was, when they had the fire shooters and the telekinesis guys and the shield guys or whatever, there was all those stuff from the actual book that they had, in the heresy the names for. That has to be what they're talking about, right?
It does. And that sounds fantastic. And so how that translates could be in a multitude of different ways. Like, I'm not sure they're going to get 9 new psychic trees. That seems a bit over the top.
Hard to balance, I think, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was very hard to balance. Very, very hard to balance. But it could be that there's, they find some spells better to cast, or there's one, like, you dedicate yourself and you get one of these new, like, you get a new power, you get a stratagem, you get a relic, you get a waller trait that goes along with each of these 9
we have seen
options.
Psychic trees with only 3 powers before. I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's actually true.
The first Demon Prince.
Be'lakor
had 3 powers to pick from.
Upon release, yeah, I think in Index. And has he been updated? Is he actually in the Codex yet?
I feel like he gets several options now. But, like, the Black Templars and like, I'm thinking about, like, even things like the Crimson Fist have 3 warlord traits and stuff they can pick from. So, we could see shorter lists.
That's true. It's very true. And maybe that's the way they'll go with this. I think I do feel like it's more likely that they go with, like, the, when you say you're dedicated to Nurgle, and you're in Chaos Space Marine book, you get, like, a relic, a warlord trait, a thing. Maybe they're going to just do that, a further breakdown inside the T-Sons book.
Or even one power, like this power replaces your smite with something else.
Yeah, just like Eldar. Actually, that's actually a great idea. Because the Eldar one have the one they can replace smite with one of the ones from the Fortune psychic powers.
I mean, we're only speculating here. We're looking at less than a paragraph of text on.
I know, and trying to extrapolate a 100-page codex out of it. It's good stuff. Quality content.
It will be neat to see how close we come, right?
We do, absolutely.
You mentioned Whirlwinds earlier. Can we take a quick break? I would like to. This may be a little bit longer show than we normally have, but I'd like, if you have the time, to talk a little bit about army list construction and some community building going into the next year.
I do. I'm here all day. Let's do it.
All right. See you in a minute.
FTN is brought to you by Discount Games Inc. Please visit them at www.discountgamesinc.com. And don't forget to ask Jay about ways to save even more on your hobby projects.
Hey everybody, we are back. Please don't forget to check out our sponsors. Amazing folks we work with. Adam, what's up?
Right now, I am making some bases.
So I got hit up on Instagram. I'm at Fights with Dice on Instagram and at Warmaster_TPM on Twitter. I love talking shop about army lists. And one of the guys hit me up. Is like, yo, I've got some holiday dollars to spend. How can I buff up my collection? And I hope, I'm not going to say who, but he said, I'm thinking about taking Whirlwinds for Blood Angels.
Yeah. What's his thinking there? Did he give a justification of why he thinks that unit is, viable, or what's his reasoning?
Actually, a really good justification. It was one of my opponents, my buddy, ate me up with their Thunderfires and their Whirlwinds, and I wanted something that could combat with that.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a really fair assessment of the game. Of course, I immediately said, don't take Whirlwinds as Blood Angels. Like, your Whirlwinds are never going to shoot as well as a Space Marine Whirlwind, and Space Marines probably shouldn't take the Whirlwinds either. You're better off spending the extra 10 points on the Thunderfire. You get so much more. Well,
I'm of the same opinion, but I feel like you should, if you can, and you're playing many of the better Space Marine chapters, you should probably just take both. Like, they're both quite good value. But if you're going to take one or the other, you probably take the Thunderflies.
Well, let me also back it up. I said, look, man, that's probably, I came off a little too strong with that. Are we making a hobby decision here to where you just really like the model and you want to use it? In that case, rule of cool should always take precedent.
Trumps, yeah.
On Twitter, I post, I'm working on some Sanguinary Guard. I mean, I'm putting 20 in a list.
Sick.
And it's specific armaments, they get a lot of options. And so my collection, I needed to add a few more to paint up. So, with the right armaments. And the guy asked me, he's like, yo, why don't I see any axes in there? And I told him, look, the axes, just in my opinion, aren't as good as the swords because you want the extra AP and you get a +1 to wound. So who cares if you have a +1 strength?
Yep.
I mean, that's why I'm saying that. But he's like, I just like the way the axes look. I'm like, well then, man, you got to spend the most time with the model. You're the one that's got to put all that love into it. So go with whatever you want. But if we're just talking, objective numbers, objective numbers, then the swords, I think, in my opinion, are the best option. Same reason why I'm never my optimal build, I don't think includes Infernus pistols because there's kind of an awkwardness in their range. Like, yes, I love them. We're to be able to shoot them every single time, but you have a conflict in what the unit is then being used for.
And so what's the range on the Infernus pistol? Is it 9 inches or 6 inches?
6.
Yeah, so you can't shoot them off the deep strike, which is the big issue.
And they already chew up things when they're that close. If they're in reach out and touch you range, you're already in trouble.
Yeah, exactly right. It's a cross purpose. It's a conflict of interest.
And you pay the points for that. If it was a free option, then it's a different conversation. But when you're spending the 4 to 7 points or whatever for whatever the weapon upgrade is, then it's a different conversation. So let me preface in all this. So, but he asked, and then I went into the fact that, Blood Angels, if you just add in more jump pack guys, more quality jump pack guys, like, hey, sprinkle in 10 more Sanguinary Guard, you don't even need Thunderfire cannons because the beauty of indirect fire is that it can get in places that the rest of your stuff can't reach. But if you're swarming all over the board, and I think this is the kind of a thing going into armulus design, already, if you're already getting into the thick of things and being able to dig things out from outside a line of sight or inside of a magic box or whatever, then your requirement to have indirect fire is a lot less of a necessity.
Yep. Exactly right. But it depends it really depends how deep people want to go, because it's a very deep rabbit hole in list construction, because there are just so many facets to take into account the more competitive you get. Things like if let's say you're just specifically tailoring for a mission structure. So you play ITC missions and you're questioning whether the whirlwind's the right way to go. I would say a whirlwind is something you might you'd really want to consider more, depending on the missions you're doing. If you have missions that heavily favor secondaries, like first strike or getting kills every turn consistently, like the ITC does, you want to be able to guarantee that you're going to get a kill on turn 1. So that all of a sudden, because you're able to get a kill on turn 1, that makes things like old school a viable option for your secondary. If you can't get a kill, if you don't think you can guarantee a kill turn 1, you can't take that. You can't really bank on taking that secondary, because the first road bump on that is getting a kill on turn 1. And if you're not getting that, that means there's a point in the game you're never going to get. And that's always a bad place to start, especially when you're going first in a game.
When you effectively lose 2 or 3 points on turn 1.
Yeah, exactly right.
You're in a deficit, essentially from turn 1 on. So that's a really great point, counter to what the advice I gave.
Sorry, man. But like I said,
that's
exactly how deep you want to go with the discussion. If this guy's just saying, "Hey, the local guy I've got is beating me down because he has indirect fire and I don't," then it's just a matter of how deep do you want to go with this dude? Because taking a whirlwind is a little stopgap. It's a little stopgap option that when you go first, you get to, or possibly second, even if you get your hider better than he does. You get the option to interact with his no line of sight shooting before he interacts with yours. But it's the same problem, like you said, which is perfectly valid. Just take stuff that either its Sanguinary Guard doesn't care all that much about Thunderfire cannons. Firstly, they have fly, so you can't Tremor Shell them. And secondly, their defensive profile as a 2-up means you have a 4-up save with 2 wounds against a Thunderfire. Maybe you lose, at worst case, you probably lose 2 Sanguinary Guard to a Thunderfire firing max shots with real 1s to wound and stuff, and -2. Maybe you lose 2. Maybe you lose 1. Maybe you don't even lose 1. So just taking stuff that either doesn't care about that profile of shooting, or that they can also don't care about it and just reach out and touch it with a bad touch, like Sangard touch everything, is perfectly valid.
Stabby.
Just stab him good, and you don't have to care about how they shoot you.
Well, I do try my best to ask those questions ahead of time, why is this a modeling choice? Do you just like the model?
I like that you qualify what they're looking for. I think that's the best way to start, because then they know where they stand. Well, so then you know where you stand with them, they know where they stand with you. You're not just going to give them all this information that they're not prepared for, like the First Blood stuff. Like, this guy might have never even known what an ITC mission is. I just you can't take it because then you can't take old school. If you can't take old school, and all of a sudden there's a whole plethora of things you can't do in the game, and you're really bad and stuff. But yeah, if he doesn't care about ITC, I've just given him like a couple of paragraphs of information. Firstly, he doesn't care for, and secondly, it was a waste of both of our times.
I'd never say, but you can also make the point of, I just want to use models that I've got. I don't want to purchase anything new. Or in this case, the dude said, I want to purchase something new. I want to get something else. Like, what is the best thing to do? And those are all interesting ways to come about list building.
Yeah, well, the other option is for that guy, if you're looking at taking a whirlwind because he's worried about all the indirect fire, why not look into a flyer? It does the same aggressive push up the board, not putting another thing into your face. Ergo, the same kind of threat or thing that needs to be a problem that needs to be addressed by your opponent, but it can fly behind those ruins and shoot those Thunderfire cannons turn one. Can move 40 or 60 inches.
A Fire Raptor is not in fashion right now, but it is still. If it's on the table, if someone goes out of the way to take one, it's priority number one. Absolutely, and it's sexy. It's sexy model. It's like it's ticking the boxes. Yeah, indeed. But I think that they're in a Blood Angels army. Like if we were talking Iron Hands or Imperial Fist or something, I think that's a little bit of a different conversation. Yeah, for sure. Well, you should always you should be trying to not trying to make a fish fly, if you know what I mean. It's a fish. Keep it in the water. Blood Angels are a punchy, aggressive army. Keep them punchy and aggressive. Don't try and make a gun line. There's almost you're pushing it uphill. Yeah. I think you, in my opinion, you have to dedicate as much as you possibly can points wise. Now, not that the Whirlwind's a lot of points either, and I know we're talking, a little bit about Whirlwind specifically, but I think in the what is it really? It is something that can sit in your backfield that can hold down an objective, so that's important. Yep. And I think you need that, and you would always be able to fire it. So, I mean, theoretically, you're going to always be able to fire it unless someone goes out of their way to try to get it, which is not something that you would always happen, let's say, with an intercessor squad. Yep, it's true. Yeah, you're not investing a lot, and you're doing something. So just about every mission needs something stable to sit on objectives for you. Like there's not really a mission structure out there or a game we can play where you're not going to at least at some point need something to stand still on an objective. Having a Thunderfire isn't so bad an idea. The difference is though, you're already like if you're playing Blood Angels, I'm assuming you're going to be taking at least one battalion. So you're already taking units like scouts, like attack marines, intercessors. Those guys do that job. I agreed. I'm just saying that you could always fire the Whirlwind, whereas in an intercessor or scouts, if they are back there, you might not always get an opportunity to interact with the game, other than scoring the point, which is sometimes, I mean, that's priority. That's it. That's the ultimate thing you need to do with them is scoring points every round. But again, making pew pew noises is like really a critical element of this game. So true. I guess my point was saying that there's no need to take things to do that job when you're just your base buy-in for list construction already means you've got a couple of units to do it. Totally relevant. I think you have the nail on the head though. There is let the fish be a fish. Let the fish be a fish. There's no need to try and make the fish be a monkey. Trying to teach the fish to climb a tree is just probably not a good use of your time. Yeah, but if you are, I mean, there's plenty of cool stuff. I think everyone could benefit from having at least 20 Sanguinary Guard on the table. And on top of that, you're just going to feel like a great guy. You're just going to be like, you know what? My army looks cool. I'm cool. But see, let me go. What? 20 Sangard. Let me harsher myself just a little bit. I'm taking 15 Death Company. I'm probably better off just having 10 more Sanguinary Guards. Sangard. Yeah, you are. I mean, what are they bringing to the list? They just look so cool. They're so cool and just Forlorn Fury. That's the only things that they're bringing over the Sangard. Forlorn Fury is fun, all right? Because it is very fun. I mean, you are essentially pushing your chips all in every time, and that is very exciting, especially in Vegas. Yeah. Well, that's what you're there for. You're there to bet big, win big, or get stomped. But have some quick games and whatever. Yeah, but, there's so many other things you could be doing with your time. Point for point, I'm probably better off taking 30 Sanguinary Guard. Yeah, realistically, you're probably right. But I like Lamartie's. I like the character. The models, I have my own Lamartie's, but the character is really cool, and I love the aggression of it. Like when you get to roll up there with 6 attacks apiece, and you're like, you know what? I'm just chewing down whatever is there. It feels good to do it. Absolutely right. I actually am going to say one more for the best model stuff. I don't know how old the Sanguinor is, but he's one of my favorites. He's got to be more than 10 years. He does have to be more than 10 years. I'm just looking at him now. I'm like, yeah, that is an old dude. Yeah, but he is beautiful. He's gorgeous. Yeah. Very, very pretty. He's got that thing where he's being held up by his
his scrolls. What are they?
That was a trademark. Yeah, the purity seals or whatever.
Purity seals. They're holding him up, and I feel like they stole that for the new Celestine model. She's doing the same.
Yep. Well, Astrath is the same way, I think.
Yeah, but Celestines are like stupidly long. They're like 3 times longer than her. She is
grey looking.
Like if you ever wanted to pull her down, you just hang onto the tassels and she'll make her crash.
Model to transport. You got to have some specialized foam for that.
I didn't purchase her because I know how often I break things.
You have to know your own limitations.
It is, you know your limits. I used to play ogres in fantasy, and I used to break those models. So she would not last like a day with me.
That's a talent.
It's a skill, yeah. I should work in demolitions.
Please don't touch any of my models.
I will not touch your stuff.
So you brought up some interesting points about missions and the mission set you're playing with. That actually became a topic of conversation on Twitter today.
Oh, cool.
One of my buddies brought it up, and he mentioned the fact that he really liked some of the mission concepts in the Chapter Approved book.
Well, I can't say I've had a look at them, so by all means enlighten me, dude.
Okay, so the missions for not the Maelstrom stuff, I'm talking about the Eternal War missions.
Yep.
Their victory conditions, they're not as complex as ITC, and that's actually one of the things that someone brought up is like, the reason it can't get any tractions is because of how popular the ITC mission set is. And that's probably what that dude's perception is, and I think that you should never be worried about trying to innovate. Because really we said we're going to talk about community building, and this is what I'm going to kind of dovetail this into that, is because if you're not playing organized play or tournaments at your store, figure out why. It could be that people don't like progressive objectives. They don't like doing all this bookkeeping. I mean, there's some reason that that they are not participating in more organized play. They could be afraid, or I don't want to use afraid or intimidated. They could not like their perception of what they think tournament players are.
Yep.
They might not have 8 hours to burn on a Saturday. I'm like, there's you don't know if you don't asking, right? But
really
missions, missions directly translate into a critical element of, is someone going to be having fun during the game?
Yep. And you mean like mission balance? Is the mission well weighted, and both players have an ability to engage with it? Yeah,
can I bring stuff that's interesting to me and have feel like I've done something this game?
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it as well. Can I bring something? Can I bring a unit or an army or a model that is evocative and interesting to me, and still be able to play the game?
Yeah,
actually play the game.
That's exactly right. So there's missions here in the Eternal War section that are like, for instance, it's called Scorched Earth. This is one of those to where, starting from the second battle round, each player scores 1 victory point for each objective marker they control at the start of their turn. Which, by the way, I like start of the turn control objective control, and because for me, it makes for much more aggressive gameplay. But that's one of those things that you can throttle. Like if you're trying to innovate some missions for your specific group of players in your store, I mean, like, don't worry about pleasing the world. Get people out to your store in your area or your house and play some games that they want to play. So at the start of the turn, if an objective marker is within the enemy's deployment zone, you can choose to raise it if you control it. Doing so scores you 3 points. So 1 to control it, 3 points if you destroy it.
Yeah, that one was, I think that one was in last year's Chapter Approved. So I'm happy that they've kept it.
2017. It's actually debuted. There's a little editor's note in this book that says it was in Chapter Approved 2017.
Yeah, well, it's a very good mission. It's a very well weighted. So here's a funny thing though, because it's got player placed objectives. So the objectives are placed by each player at the start of the game. You place 3, your opponent places 3, and as it says in the rundown. So I played. So if people don't know, the ETC missions they are components. They are 3-tiered missions, and the first tier is Maelstrom, the second tier is Eternal Wars, and the third tier is Kill Points. And naturally, there's your First Blood, Warlord, Linebreaker. They're very classical but complex because they've got so many layers and so many tiers to them. Now, that is one of the core Eternal War missions was Raised Ground, and I played that. Sorry, Scorched Earth. I played that 3 times in my ETC run, being in singles and doubles, or was it twice? And every time, neither me or my opponent put any objectives in our deployment zones. We were just like, oh yeah, player placed objectives. Oh, this is the one where you don't put them in your deployment zone. So we just don't engage in that whole facet of the the thing because we just don't put them in your deployment zone because you just don't, at that level, you just don't take the risk.
That's where I'm going. See, these are all toggles I think that you can take as some core concepts of the actual game itself. And if you are creating missions, then you get to do things like set deployment zones versus role deployment zones, or player place objectives versus not, versus set objectives. And maybe, it's not, you don't destroy an objective, because me personally, I don't like when you remove an objective from the table. I think that there's always a little bit of like a screw your buddy aspect in that. And it's not fun for everybody. It's basically a fun sponge to me. And I don't care for that. But you could still put in that extra, like there used to be the Emperor's Will, to where like if you were controlling the enemy's deployment zone, it was double the victory points or whatever. So, you could just control it. And I don't know. I'm not theory crack. I'm just saying that these are the core concepts are strong. So let's go to a new one if you want. So Lockdown.
Yeah, sure.
Lockdown, at the end of the game, the player with the most victory points is the winner. Okay, that was a little, sorry.
Edit it out.
He's going to have to score the most points here if he's planning on winning the game.
Oh, wow. Outrageous. I never played. Wow. Just, that is some stunning innovation there. I've never heard that one before. Yeah, it was.
Each player scores one victory point at the end of each of their turns for each objective marker they control. A player controls an objective, they're within 3 inches or whatever. Dominance. There are multiple victory conditions, which is where in the previous ones in the 2017s there was singular. 2018 they started doing multiple victory conditions. There's another one, multiple victory conditions.
Awesome.
Dominance. At the end of each battle round, a player scores one victory point if they control more objective markers than their opponent. A player controls an objective marker if there's within 3. So you're trying to score one and score more, which is a concept we're familiar with.
That sounds influenced by the ITC just off the bat.
Yeah, it could be, but it's a simple twist on a core concept of the game. Because really, what are we talking about? We're talking about killing stuff, being somewhere on the table, or being somewhere at the end of the game. I mean, that's really the three.
That's really the three ways. Yeah.
Just how do we slice and dice differently for that? So that's the brand new mission is that, and the rest of them I think are from previous renditions, 2017, 2018.
Nice. Well, I personally think the 2018 missions were quite good.
There's another brand new, the Crusade. Victory conditions are seize and control. Starting from this second battle round, each player scores one victory point for each objective marker they control at the start of their turn. A player control, whatever. So there we go. That's an aggressive take on scoring progressive.
I'm a big fan of the scoring at the start of your turn. Huge fan. Because it means you have to just engage a lot more tactically. So not only do you have to get an objective, you have to hold it through your opponent's turn. Your opponent's always going to get a chance to engage with you on an objective, try and shoot you off it, try and take it from you, charge you, whatever. So I just think it takes a lot more nuance and it takes a lot more tactical thought to play those missions, and I just think that's what people play 40k for. A lot of people play it to engage their brains and make them think harder and think longer, and I think that's good. I think it's a good touch.
It's an aggressive rule set. Models get removed in a greater capacity than they ever have before.
In the current edition, I think that's absolutely true.
And so playing these types of games, maybe it goes into almost like a soccer mentality to where you have lower scoring games, but it's still a shootout. Yeah,
exactly right. Or you've got people who you get a lot more wary of your opponent's ability to take you off things. And so instead of being able to just put 5 scouts in your back corner on an objective, you're like, well, those 5 scouts will just get shot off in my opponent's turn. So I need to put those 5 scouts, a rhino, and a character behind those 5 scouts and the rhino, just so I have a better chance of holding that objective. And all of a sudden, that makes you make a lot more decisions with where you place the rest of your army. If you have to do that on 2 or 3 objectives in a turn, chances are one of those is going to be exposed, or chances are you're going to have to make some compromises on what units you get aggressive with, or where you place your things like your Sangard. My Sangard would usually just go for the big coup de grace blow, but if I don't go for that one, if I go for this second option, they'll be on an objective. And so that forces my opponent to have to shoot them or all these other things. And so, I just think it expands upon your engagement with your opponent and makes for a lot more tactical play.
So these missions, while, they're the basic concepts that we just discussed, they will absolutely influence what people bring and what is ultimately competitive. Everything does, by the way. Not these missions, not those missions, not your friends' missions, not the missions from 8 years ago. Every single mission set, anytime you put parameters on how victory is achieved, Influence is what people bring.
I suppose the two most basic, I guess, army list tropes is MSU and mech. They're like the two biggest, I suppose, 40k archetypes, the ways you can build it. Are you going to build a mech list or are you going to build an MSU list? I suppose those are the two that get thrown out the most, or the two most prevalent styles. And of course, you add onto that horde lists, and then you add onto that, ultra elite things like the custodes, and, the pool of mainstay lists or archetypes that are successful exponentially. Like in ITC, just taking that for example, because it's probably the most prevalent or most well known to the listeners, is you're punished for taking MSU because of things like not just because of things like Butcher's Build, which is a secondary, but because of the main, I guess, eternal war component, if the way I can describe it, is to kill and kill more and hold more. So you're probably going to give up a kill pretty much every turn, because MSU means you've got lots of small units.
You got a couple of 5-man dudes hanging out somewhere. And
Yeah. So the chances of you giving up kill more increase exponentially, but as too do the chances of you getting hold more. That's the trade-off. So, but usually in saying that, you'd assume that because you're giving up more points, it's a worse of the option. You always want to limit the amount of points you give out, especially in ITC. But in ETC mission formats, MSU is king. MSU is very good. They do have a kill point portion of that mission structure, but that is capped. It's capped at a differential. So as soon as you get more than 6 kills from your opponent, you're going to get 6 points at the end of the game. But because a lot of the Eternal War components are progressive scoring, as in you score them at the end of your turn, at the start of your turn, and things like that, and on top of that, you're pulling Maelstrom cards, which a lot of them are like, hold this objective, defend this objective, hold 3 objective supremacy behind enemy lines and stuff like that. MSU, or things that are function like MSU, like Guardsmen. Guardsmen function quite well like MSU units because you can make a move twice and there's lots of them and stuff. MSU becomes a lot more prevalent. So have a look into the formats you're playing in and try and think of what archetypes actually get benefits out of the structure.
I think it just in the vein of community building is that find out if the scene is not as thriving in your area as it may be in other places. Don't be afraid to ask why more people aren't coming out. And really, you need the support of some buddies. You need to stock the pond. You need to get 4 or 5 people that'll come to the tournament, but you might attract 4 or 5 more just by mixing up some of the mission sets.
Exactly right. I really think it's really good that you said ask why. I think that's the most important thing to ask. Like, why are we not doing tournaments, or why is our tournaments not have more people at them, or whatnot? Or why are we getting new players into this tournament? Are we not making it attractive enough for new players, or the entry is too steep? Either being price or the requirements, like say you have to have 100% painted army. Just having let's say you're playing a scene where they all have very high painting requirements. Chucking 1 or 2 events in a year that have no painting requirements, that you can, you just come in, rock up, play, whatever. All of a sudden that might bring new people in at that level, and then in a year or 2 they might be playing with fully painted armies. But
another thing that I've seen that kind of rewards it is you relax. Now look, I'm a hobby snob, by the way.
Me too, actually.
If I'm traveling to an event, I really don't want to have driven 1,000 miles to play against somebody's gray plastic. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. But locally or down here, in my play area, that all goes away. But what I've seen is you relax the painting requirement to get people in the door, but you still reward, like there's a place, there's a gift card or whatever for the best paint. Okay,
so here's a can of worms we might be opening. This might not be on the radar for this episode. It might be a topic for a future one if you want to put it aside. But where do you sit on commission painted armies being eligible for prize support?
I have dealt with this for years.
Yep.
Like years and years and years. And this is my actual opinion. If you require everyone to be honest to decide what, the outcome of something is, then you're probably not going to get a 100% result.
Honesty, yeah.
So because I checked my box that I painted my entire army myself on my check-in sheet or whatever, and somebody else didn't because they didn't paint one model, I don't think that should knock them out of best painted. Best is the best. And one of the main reasons, I don't know if you were planning on me going off like this.
No, this is exactly what I wanted. So
one of the main reasons that you have good painted armies at your place is to attract other people. It's like peacocking. You're the flower. They're the flower that brings the bees to your shop or to your tournament the next time, because that bee's going to go back to the hive and say, "Yo, there's a really nice flower over here. Let's all go check it out." So who cares?
Yeah, well, I'm of the opinion that I do prefer, if at all possible, for people to be rewarded for their work. Like I'm a big fan of I've got many friends who do commission painting, and I do commission painting myself as well from time to time. But I would, if I have a commission painted army, I'd never put it up for best painted. But I don't know if you guys do it over there. There's a lot of tournaments they have TO's choice painted, and then they have best painted as voted for by peers, like the peer votes.
Yep. That happens at some of the larger tournaments, and also like in the hobby track stuff. So where you're competing for points. And
so
the best is always left over.
I'm of the opinion that they should absolutely be eligible for votes by peers. By the vote of your peers, they deem that your army is the best presented there. Absolutely. I think the TO's choice, so if that's to be separated, should go to somebody who's painted their army. If I'm going to make a distinction, usually you will. Like, I mean, I'm speaking from Australia, and Australia is a very small scene, so take this with a grain of salt. In Australia, we know everybody. We know who's painted their armies. We know who hasn't painted their armies. We know it's very, very easy for us to know. And we're lucky when people are very honest about it as well.
Yeah. There's no reason to not be honest. I'm just saying that you never do know. I think the guys who are honest are often the ones that are penalized, and that's the problem with the system. And that's my real thing. It's like there was a tournament years ago, and this actually influenced my opinion. I mean, we're talking 20 years ago, man. Like this wasn't even me. A guy I knew brought a commissioned army, and it was specifically like mentioned beforehand that would not be held against him for best painted. But then he didn't win best painted, and it was clearly the best painted over there. But so I thought, like, man, this guy's a nice guy, and he was just honest about it. And you know, any of the other 100 people here, we don't know who painted what. And I don't think those people should be penalized for being honest. And that's actually where I was, how I formed my opinion.
Yeah, I suppose there is an element of chipmunking to that. I suppose the chipmunking is actually a term I heard Americans use for why sports scores and things like that went away, because people would just kind of, we call it sniping here. We call it sports sniping. People snipe each other off podiums, and unfortunately it has happened a few very, very notorious times, which has seen them decline in popularity. Yeah, the same thing can happen with painting as well. And I do apologize if that was an unwelcome divergence, but it came to mind. And I think it's an important thing to know. It's like it's one of the.
Well, no, we're talking about the conversations, scene, right? So
exactly, it's one of the conversations that's never gone away for as long as I've been in the hobby. It's always been where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on this?
The maturity of your scene is kind of like which topic is applicable to you. If everyone is painting their armies and everyone brings it in, and you've got 30 people and 15, 16 of those people show up at your monthly or every month tournament, then, whatever, you don't need to worry about any of this. You figured something out that's fine, But if you're struggling to get that 8 players, or you're trying to get to that threshold of, do we run a 2-day event? That's a different maturity of your scene, and you got different problems, or different considerations. Not problems is a strong word, but different considerations at that point.
There's a concept called player development, which is only becoming more prevalent as the scene gets more and more standardized and professional. But as a TO or a prevalent community member, you do have some say in the molding of your community, and I think every player does. If you are a player at your tournament, I think the best thing you can do is give honest feedback to your TOs, to the people you look to mold the games that you play, because you purchase an experience as a customer. Like, you go to the movies, you purchase to go see a movie. It's the same thing as purchasing to play a game of Warhammer at a tournament. You pay your $50 and you're purchasing 5 games against a random opponent at a tournament. You're not guaranteed to have fun. They're not guaranteeing that you're going to enjoy your games or you're going to win, but they're guaranteeing you're going to get 5 games. But they should always be striving to make sure that's a positive experience. Now, if that means that you have some element of a sports score or some element of a tick box, so be it. Don't be restricted by the fact that you think, this won't be accepted, that won't be accepted. Do whatever the people want, really. And that's why we've gotten to the place we are. Like, with things like the ITC, we've got a standard mission structure, a code of conduct, things like this. It's because there's a genuine need and desire from the community to have them.
It's an off-the-shelf way. I mean, like, one of the things that we often talk about is almost like a Rosetta Stone of conversation. Like, we can walk up to a game and say, we're going to play a 2,000-point ITC match, and that's all we have to say, you know, and that's fine and all. It's an established thing, and people know what they're getting into. But, you know, that's not for everyone, and don't be afraid to mix it up a little bit in your area.
Yeah, and look, I'm a pretty competitive player, and it's not for me all the time. Like I don't want to be playing I don't want every mission I play in a year to be ITC. I think that's boring. Even though I like the ITC missions, I genuinely like them. I just think they can get pretty dull, and there's a multitude of reasons which we probably won't go into. I don't think one global mission structure is the way forward. I think variety is the spice of the hobby, and it's the spice of my hobby.
We see that in Chapter Approved. I mean, even in the match play section, we've got. Now, look, I am on record as not being a fan of Maelstrom.
Yeah, I am not a fan either, to be honest.
But some people dig it. There is scoring things at the beginning of the turn. Yeah.
I don't say I'm against it. I don't actively dislike Maelstrom. It's just not my favorite.
I actively dislike it.
There we go.
No, okay. Let me take it one step forward. What I don't like is it's hard. Now this is where I get a little bit contradictory, but for me, it is hard to forge a clear narrative when it seems like my objectives are changing each turn.
Well done, by the way, Paul. I feel like getting the line forge the narrative into an episode should be like the only goal we have in every episode, and you've just ticked that box. Congratulations.
But it also is luck of the draw, right? Because you could easily draw the right thing, or if you could influence your deck. What I would really love to see if with that concept is I get to build my own 40-card deck similar like Shadespire or something. You know?
Someone actually mentioned that is in Chapter Approved. I haven't actually looked into it, but someone said they've made it more that you can craft your deck a lot more now. Well, I apologize, I haven't looked into this, but I never know where an evening with Paul is going to go. But
yes, constructing your objective deck is in Chapter Approved.
Sick. So yeah, I think that goes a long way into helping Maelstrom become a more accepted format, because it can just be so swingy.
This deck should be made up of a minimum of 18 tactical objective cards chosen from the pool available to your army.
Only 18?
Yep. Okay. No more than one copy of each uniquely named tactical objective can be included in your deck.
There you go. I think that's pretty cool.
Yep.
So that is actually brings a very interesting thing into it, because there are a couple of missions there where you can legitimately score 18 cards in a mission. So what happens when you score all your cards? You're out.
Well, you go buy a lottery ticket and whatever. That's it.
Well,
or hopefully you're winning. If you're not winning, I don't know what else is happening.
Exactly right. I was about to say, well, wait a second, Adam. If you scored all 18 of your cards, it doesn't matter if you have no more cards left. Who's going to beat you? Like, who that could have beaten you? Like, yeah, never mind.
Well, I mean, I guess it's a consideration, especially if the other guy scores all 18 of his.
Well, if the other guy has 21 cards in it, so the other guy has 19 cards in his deck, and he scores all of his. Yeah. You're screwed.
Look, this is still an advancement forward if Maelstrom is your thing, I think, or a way for it to be more of other people's thing if you include.
Yeah, it makes it more palatable. Right? It makes it an easier format to accept. There's a couple of cards in there that I would just like to see banned from like competitive play. That being like priority orders received. That's the card where if your Warlord scores the next card so you pull that card and then you pull one more card. And if your Warlord scores that card, they score how many points that card is worth, plus like 3 or 4 extras. So I've had games where I've been up by 1 point, and then they pull priority orders received, and the next card they pulled was an objective their Warlord just happened to be on, and I lose by 4 points. Well, I'm like, well, I worked really hard to get 1 point up, and then you just pulled one card that meant you win the game. That does leave a bad taste in your mouth.
Well, look, we play a dice game. There's already some random element in there.
Oh, for sure.
So, I get it. And we're talking about, speaking of, the community building and stuff, I believe the Warhammer Heroes nominations are still open.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that last year. Some good friends of mine, Mike Bask and his wife from Objective Secured in WA, they got on that plaque there, Warhammer Heroes in Western Australia. Shout out to them. I think that's pretty cool. And they're on the inaugural, the very first draft, I guess, the very first class So I think that's a great issue by Games Workshop. Why are you putting it out there saying the nominations are still open, guys? Paul Murphy, Forge Narrative.
No. Look, what I'm saying is there are people out there that are holding it down for large groups.
Yeah,
or even large groups for 10 folks or whatever. They're keeping the hobby alive. I can't guarantee that's going to make it on the wall, but that's the kind of stuff that I think the company wants to hear about.
Yeah, and it's worthy recognition because it's sometimes a lot of work for absolutely nothing to get tournaments off the ground, to get leagues going, to get all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, so big community things. I think this is where we're going to see, we've got all this cool stuff. Obviously, the hobby's thriving, and we want to see that continue to happen. And the way that happens is people doing the stuff that engaging like they want to and finding ways to keep people interested outside of just rapid releases from the company. So
yeah. Well, so they're doing all the rapid releasing for us. So we've got the bit where we need to keep the enthusiasm and keep people engaged with the products. And that's not for GW's sake. GW's going to do whatever they do, but that's for our sake, so that we have a game with a long lifespan.
Well, having fun with the toys, and that's what.
And just enjoying the freaking toy soldiers.
I mean, I do enjoy going out to the stores, the local stores, and playing, 3 games in a day. Because honestly, even if I can't make it to there was a period of time, 4 or 5 years ago or so, where I couldn't play many casual games. Like the only games I got were the 5 games of that tournament I traveled to.
Yep.
In the span of 3 months or whatever.
I'm pretty much the same. I live in a regional city, a small regional city, and my player pool is relatively small. And one of the struggles I've had in the past is that I want to practice for tournaments, but that's not the player base in my town. There's only about 2 or 3 other players who actively play in tournaments. And so I need to be very conscious that I might want to play and practice a tournament list, but that's not what's right for the people I play against. So I need to not so much censor myself, but be a bit sensitive to where other people are at and not force them to conform to how I want to play.
You're being considerate of the enjoyment of the people that are taking time out of their day or whatever.
That's the thing. It's a 2-player game, and if you make everyone, it's a 2-player game. If you want to play solo and just go as hard as you can, play online stuff. This is a game of cooperation. At any point,
or you have an opponent that knows what's up.
Exactly.
Or they have the same goal as you, is making this as a mono-player experience as possible.
That doesn't mean that I'm playing a fluff bunny, therefore I have to play a garbage list. Try and meet in the middle. So, hey man, I'd like to play a list that has XYZ in it. Like, let's say, that means a knight. And maybe these guys are playing in a meta where knights are this big, crazy thing where not all players are equipped to deal with them. Just say, hey man, I'd like to be able to take a knight. How do you feel about that? And if they say, oh man, I'm not sure what I'm taking can deal with it, maybe you leave it at home.
Yeah.
Or maybe you bring a unit or two.
But I'm playing the Ninth Company and we don't have any heavy weapons. Like, oh crap.
Yeah. Then you know never mind. I'm not going to finish that one. But
tomorrow, I'm slightly ashamed to admit this, tongue in cheek, of course, but I am playing a 30K narrative game tomorrow.
That's sick. 30K is quickly becoming my outlet for all my narrative and thematic immersion into the hobby, because unfortunately I'm on the ETC team for Australia. I'm going very hard competitively in 40K. I still need that outlet though. I still need where I can look at the models and they're on a thematic table and the armies look like they do in the books, and you're just like, oh, this is incredible. So yeah, what are you taking? What's in your...
Oh, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. I think after we're done recording, I'm going to pick your brain about what I should take, but I'm taking Sons of Horus.
Amazing. Awesome. With Horus or Abaddon?
Yeah. I already told him, look, man, I know this is going to be narrative, but I'm going to have a really good reason to why I have Horus. He's like, oh, well, I have a really good reason why I have Russ, so you'll be fine.
Yeah, superb. There's a whole book dedicated to that fight. Yeah. Why not?
We're going right for it.
Yeah, it's a good book as well. Everyone should pick that up.
Yeah, but then on Saturday I've lined up some test games for 40K. So again, I'm kind of blessed with getting some games back to back. But it's still be cognizant of the fact that some people, they might not get that, and their 3 games that quarter may be at your tournament that you're trying to organize. So try to make it fun for them.
No, can't agree more.
That's it, man. Man, is there anything else? Again, last show of the year, last show of the decade. The only thing you want to mention before we break out, you're going to be coming to America soon. In 4 or 5 nights, I am, 31st of the month, I am jumping on a plane and I'm flying for 23 hours to get to the apparently greatest country in the world. We'll find out. I'll give my opinion afterwards.
Adam's in-depth American review. But no, so I'll be blogging pretty much the entire thing. Because I'm going to Charity Hammer, so you can tune into the Charity Hammer event. Please support that as well. That is literally like, it's just this amazing experience. A bunch of the best players in America have gotten together and invited a couple of other people along. I'm going to be doing commentary of a lot of games. I'm going to be playing a bunch of games. Check them out on Twitch, Charity Hammer. It's going to be on the Biff Pod stream, which is the Best in Faction podcast Twitch stream. It's also going to be on Can Hammer and on my stream as well, which is Down to the Network. So we'll be streaming 3 different games. It's 48 hours of continuous 40k content. So no matter what time zone you live in, tune in when you get up and you've got a couple of hours free, paint some stuff.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is great to paint too, because you're just, you kind of get hobby coming from all directions.
Yeah, and some of the you'll see some games with some of the best players in the world who are all practicing for the LVO. So it's going to be really good, really, really good, and it's all for charity as well. So please donate if you can.
Man, that's awesome. Well, I hope you have safe travels, and we're still going to try to get you in on the show while you are bebopping around this great country.
100%. You never know where I'm going to be. So my holiday is pretty open-ended. So, it's the ends are tied off, but the middle is very open. So I've got 9 nights in Seattle, the middle 4 nights of that being around Charity Hammer. And then I've got about 2.5 weeks with nothing on, and then a week in Vegas for LVO. So I'm pretty much going to go wherever the hobby takes me. Maybe I'll go down to Portland, stay a bit there. Maybe I'll fly to San Francisco, fly to New Orleans, who knows? So I'm going to be blogging the whole way, trying to meet up with as many people as I can, get as many games in. And, it's going to be, hopefully it's the time of my life.
Man, heck yeah, dude. Well, thanks for joining us. Everybody listening, thank y'all for listening. We've actually been a fixture on this channel for the better part of this decade.
Yeah, how long's
going into year 7, so
Wow.
Almost, let's just call it 10 years. So
in 10 years' time, hopefully you can say this is we did the entire decade. All of the 2020s has been covered by Forge Narrative.
I can't wait till people tell us all the models that we missed in our rundown of the best 10 in 10.
There's like 100. There's like 100 amazing models we didn't say. But everyone chucked out their favorite one. Maybe their top 3.
Yeah, and I want to hear more about people's army lists and stuff. Again, keep everything coming in. It's a real pleasure hearing about that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Nobody puts baby in the corner.